Let's talk posture. I see it all the time. Hip stances, slumpy stances, rounded shoulders, aching backs, knocked knees, foot problems, ankle problems, you name it. And in a culture where sitting is the new smoking, it is absolutely vital that we start to look at how we position our body, just as important as the amount of water we drink or making sure we get enough vitamin D. And so today we're going to be talking about posture because, hey, posture makes perfect. And we're going to be starting with the feet. So good news, we all have 2 feet. And so when you look down, one of the most important things to remember is if whatever direction you're going in, you want your feet to be pointing in that direction. That means you need to take those feet of yours that might be pointing outward or inward. Maybe you have one foot that staggers more forward than the other. We want to line those 2 feet up right beneath your hips so that the outer edges of the feet line up with the outer edges of the room. That means I'm going to encourage you to take off those shoes. Shoes, for many of us, act as casts, meaning that they muffle the foot. They don't allow the foot to utilize its structures fully. The muscles go atrophied, the bones and connective tissue start to settle in positions that aren't natural and aren't normal. And before you know it, we're finding the need for orthotics. We have things like bunions, hammer toes, ankle pain, knee pain, even hip pain. And so much of that can be traced back to the feet. So we're going to kick off our shoes, and we're going to look at our feet in their bare naked experiment or in their bare naked environment. And as we take a look at that, again, we want to line up the outer edges of the feet with the outer edges of the room. Don't worry about your toes because toes can go in all different directions. We want to look at the actual structure of the foot. Now, once you line that up, you may be looking at your legs and going, well, now Hope, my legs are rolled in, or now my back feels funny, or it makes my pelvis go in a position that I'm not used to. We're going to continue to work our way up the body, but we first have to set the foundation. So if you're like a house, what do you build first? You build the basement walls. You put the forms in, you pour the concrete, because if that's not level and settled and put in just right, the framing of the house, heck, even the roof of the house is going to be faulty. You're going to notice leaks and cracks, and the next thing you know, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars on repairs. Sound familiar? All right, so let's go back to the feet. Again, outer edges of the feet line up with the outer edges of the mat. And if you're looking at your feet and you're noticing that your arches look collapsed, or your toes or your knees feel like they're kind of diving in, sit tight, because I'm going to show you a trick to help you bring your arches back, because no one has flat feet. Unless you were born with flat feet, everybody has an arch in there. It just needs to be reawakened and reutilized. All right, keeping the feet in place, we want to really anchor down behind the big toe on the ball of the foot and behind the pinky toe on the ball of the foot. And then the same thing on the heel, inside and outside edge, like we have 4 suction cups anchored down into the floor. So keeping those suction cups nice and active, we're going to bring our way up all the way into the hip sockets now. So these thigh bones are called your femurs. And your femurs insert into your hip socket, and they move as what's called a ball and socket joint, meaning that that leg has rotation in all different directions, and it's all taken care of at the hip socket. So we're going to rotate our femurs without moving our pelvis. So if you were to bake a cake, you'd hold the bowl in place on the counter, and you'd stir with a spoon. You want your thigh to be the spoon, and your pelvis to be the bowl. So as you bring your awareness to your pelvis, we're going to find what's called pelvic neutral. That means your pubis bone. If you were to unzip a pair of jeans where the zipper ends, there's a bony protrusion there, that's your pubis bone. And then your hip bones are up in front, kind of where the top band of your pants is, and this is a fancy term called ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine. Basically, it's the front bones of your pelvis. And these 3 bony landmarks make a pelvic triangle. You want that triangle, these bony landmarks, not the flesh, not your clothes, to line up parallel with whatever wall you're facing. If I turn sideways, for many of us, we may find ourselves standing with a very tipped pelvis, where we're dumping our core out on the floor in front of us. our booty now is behind us rather than underneath us. Maybe we have more of a tucked pelvis, where now we're just kind of hunched forward, almost collapsing into our body. Maybe we do more of a child on the hip, cocked hip, where we lean and we jet our pelvis out to the side, like the house would kind of slowly start falling to the side if the foundation was bad or maybe the ground was unsettled, and all of a sudden the next thing you know you have a tilted house. So there's many different things that our body can do when our pelvis and our frame, our foundation, is not in the right position. Okay, so we lined up our feet, we've neutraled our pelvis. Now recognize that this neutral may not feel normal, but what we want to find is your natural, your born with alignment. We're going to keep the soup in the bowl. So when my pelvis is upright and in neutral, my soup, which is the contents of my core, which is my organs, are all inside my pelvis. So now that I have foot neutral and pelvic neutral, we're going to find leg neutral. And this is something that not many people talk about. Because once we set up the feet, toes forward, sometimes we just stand up tall, shoulders down and back. There's a lot of contents in between my shoulders and my feet that can go all different directions depending on the patterns that I have and the environment that I've acclimated myself to. Things like sitting, the types of shoes I wear, the type of bed you have, the types of chairs that you use every day, how you stand and carry things. All of these things affect your posture. So we have our feet, we have our pelvis, and now for leg neutral, this is going to be something that you're going to have to work on and just work to be conscious of. It's not going to be a quick, easy fix, but it's something I really want you to be conscious of. So taking my hands onto my thighs, I'm going to keep my feet grounded. So when I'm doing this rotation and when you're doing it, I want you to watch your feet. As you stay grounded through those 4 points I talked about, I want you to roll your thigh bones out, and you're going to feel your glute muscles kind of go whoop, and pick up and contract a little bit. This is not the same as squeezing your butt cheeks, okay? This is a rotation with your bones that are asking your tissues now to wake up and start activating. So as I rotate my thigh bones, keeping especially the inside points of anchoring down in the floor, if you have what some people call collapsed arches or flat feet, you're all of a sudden going to see your arches and the insides of your ankles get really happy. Make sure that you're not overcompensating and rolling way out to the outer edges of the feet. This is too much. So if some of the fascial strings and tissue strings between your ankle and your hip are really tight and maybe some are really overstretched, you may have to slowly work your way into this rotation. And I see this a lot with runners. They may not be able to go to that full point and actually work with that all the time because their tissues are so locked tight. So just be aware of that. How do I know how far to rotate out? If you turn around, or if I turn around, you have these little vertical slits behind the folds of your knees. It's a very scientific term. Those vertical slits should be pointing straight back, okay? Not out to the sides, not inward, but straight back. So you could have a friend or your partner or your kids stand behind you and have you look at those slits and tell you when they're pointing straight back, or get a full-length mirror and you can take a look and watch that way. But once you get a sense of where that is, you know then where you need to take your body. I call this the instant booty lift. Being in the fitness industry for more than 15 years, I have seen dozens of booty exercises, programs dedicated to the backside. And I'll tell you what, if your posture from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed is not in alignment for you to use those booty muscles, it doesn't matter the amount of exercises you do. You are not going to be able to overwork or compensate for those 18 plus hours a day that you're awake in just 30 minutes. And so we want to make sure that we're using our muscles in the right way. And when we put our body in the right alignment, our body doesn't have to work so hard. It becomes much easier to use things like our glutes, the arches of our feet, even our core, when we put our body where it belongs. Okay, so feet are grounded, pelvis is in neutral, legs are going to rotate out, and I'm watching that I don't see all my weight shift to the outside edges of the feet. I'm going to really work to be grounded. This might be a baby step process, but but I'm going to instantly feel my backside go from just kind of idling and doing not much of anything to instantly active just by that rotation. Please do not confuse this with squeezing your glute cheeks. I have not intentionally squeezed my glute cheeks at all. It was all about putting my thigh bones in the right alignment in their hip socket. This is a game changer, especially if you have hip pain, especially if you have knee pain, especially if you have ankle pain. And guess what? The glutes, especially your glute max, is the shelf for your lower back. So if you look at your body from the side view, and your body goes from back to butt to hamstring with not a whole lot of support kind of bubbling out and underneath, you know that you need to activate those glutes in order to help you further support your lower back. Just like a house, if you don't have a good foundation, it does not matter how thick your walls are, how great your roof is, it will eventually start to crumble. Let's keep working up the body. So I'm just going to keep reviewing. Feet, pelvic neutral, rotated neutral legs, and now we're going to work our way up to the rib cage. Now, I'm sure your mom or your grandmother said, bring your shoulders down and back, stand up straight. And although they had really good intentions, they were missing a really important key point, and that was what to do with the front ribs. I call this the butterfly wings of the front of the rib cage because your xiphoid process, which is a little teeny notch at the bottom of your sternum, kind of comes up right in the center of your chest, and then the rib cage comes down, kind of like butterfly wings, and around to the back of your body. For many people, especially in our today culture, we have this area splayed. For my women out there that wear heels, the body always has to compensate when you put it out of alignment. So if you're up on a heel, your booty usually tips back, your belly slides out, and your rib cage splays open so you can pull your shoulders back. So the body can have this stacked feeling even though it's not in a stacked position. So we want to actually bring ourselves into that stacked position. Feet, pelvis, thighs, and on a nice exhalation, I want you to try to bring your rib cage down and together. Now, for a lot of people, especially if they've done a lot of old school ab exercises, like sit-ups or crisscross, or those crazy machines that are at the gym and you kind of flail your body around, although they have good intentions, they're overusing the front core and they don't really teach you proper alignment, especially with the rib cage and shoulder girdle. When we bring the rib cage down, we now allow our front core muscles to now actually do a little bit of shortening and kind of come back into alignment. Because most of the shoes that we wear, and we're a shoed culture, have a heel, they pitch us forward and we over-lengthen our front abdominal area, and as a result, shorten our lower back. And then we come onto a chair, and then we slump, and we just constantly go into this back and forth seesaw process, which just really creates a lot of havoc for our lower back and even our shoulders and neck. So our roof wants to be dropped down onto the frame of the house, even on all sides. I like to tell my students, imagine being hung on a coat rack in the closet that drops your front ribs, and when someone says stand tall, you're actually lengthening up through the top of the head and your back body more than your front chest. So this way I feel very much stacked through the crown of my head. And exhale, pelvic neutral, brings that rib cage down and in for you. Awesome. Okay, so now that I have that rib cage down and in, what do I do with my upper back? I have a great little trick I want to show you to help you feel that engagement that maybe you've been doing by trying to just simply pull your shoulders back. I'm going to turn sideways. Bringing your arms up in front, make fists, and now with some good arm strength, imagine that you're the Incredible Hulk, and I want you to bend a piece of metal, turning your forearms up, feeling your shoulder girdle drop down without pushing the chest out. Once you've done that, drop the arms down to your sides, and you should feel some good upper back engagement without throwing yourself out of alignment. And then finally, just bringing the head back enough so the neck feels long. Not flattened, not extended out that you've been sitting at your computer all day or texting, but just settled like your chimney at the center of the peak of your house. Notice, once you stack your whole body, how easy or not easy it is to stand in this neutral. Now, it doesn't mean that I want you going around walking like a robot, but I do want you to understand that you may have been spending your entire life kind of stepping out of your natural alignment because of our environment. So we are constantly adapting to the environment that we put ourselves in. So whatever ache or pain or issue you have, it may have happened in your fitness class or it may have happened on your run, but guess what? It probably wasn't that one thing or situation that did that. It was the many things that you've put yourself in contact with, in position with, or lack of position with over the last many, many years, and then that one thing was the straw that broke the camel's back. So please understand, you have to change your environment. Not just add a yoga class, not just start running, not just start whatever it is that you're thinking you're going to add. You have to change how you live in your environment on a daily basis. Those 12 to 18 hours that you're awake, that's the span of time that you need to focus on change. Not just adding 30 minutes here, an hour here, a few times a week. Although that's positive and really good, and in my fitness classes, I'm always encouraging my students about what I call everyday alignment. So the type of alignment that we use when we use weights, when we practice yoga, when we use the foam roller, is based off of this blueprint. I call it the body blueprint. So everything we do, we put our body into this position. So we can start to heal those areas of injury. We can start to actually make changes that are setting ourselves up to easily streamline those changes in our everyday lives. So, when it comes to posture, my homework for you is just pick one of these areas of posture and work on it. And then once it becomes automatic, work on the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, until finally you have restructured your entire house. No more leaks, no more holes, no more cracks. You are going to feel like a new person. And guess what? It was powered by you. All right, good luck. If you have any questions, please make sure that you email me at info@hopesofara.com and check out any one of my courses available on my website, hopesofara.com. From my heart to yours, from my soul to yours, here's to good posture. Let's take one step forward into a new day.